Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Breaking the Cycle. We have episode 22 with Brian DeMint of Orange App. How you doing today, Ryan?
Well, how are you all doing?
Great, great. Thanks for coming on, man. We really appreciate it.
Good. Yeah.
You having a good day so far?
Man, I'm having a great day. Honestly, it's Friday, so that's always good. I'm always pretty optimistic, but I just got to mix in a good amount of work, a good balance between work, and I got to do some fun stuff. So that always makes for a good day.
Yeah,
Good
definitely.
energy.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
So, I just kind of want to do a brief rundown of what I kind of saw on your Twitter and everything. But you are the head marketing for the Orange Pill app. You are
Correct.
an author, and you are a black belt under Checkmat Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. So I am also into Jiu Jitsu. Unfortunately, I've had to take a break because I just herniated my third disc. So yeah, Jiu Jitsu and me and then I have a metal plate in my other wrist. So rolling for me is
Jeez.
yeah, I have to be really careful rolling, unfortunately. So I just got to take a break from it. So
Did you get hurt rolling, or were you like lifting a bag of cement or something like normal?
actually, both are injuries of someone running me off the road or hitting me with a vehicle. Yeah,
Dang, man.
No,
Yeah.
he was actually going to get me M&Ms, I bet.
yeah, the purple ones.
I hope they tasted good.
But
Just
so
kidding.
Jiu-Jitsu and I think Bitcoin have a lot in common. So I looked up some quotes about Jiu-Jitsu, and I think that you can also almost say that they have a lot in common and transcend into Bitcoin. So the first one is Jiu-Jitsu transcends the mats and embraces life in a much more complete way. I believe you can say the same thing about Bitcoin, right? It transcends code and everything to just be to make everything and like it touches in life better, right? Like helps to fight inflation so much, and so on. That's from Hicks and Gracie. Reduced to its core, jiu-jitsu is an employment of intelligence and skill over brute strength and aggression. And you can say that about how it fights inflation and how it keeps everyone honest about everything. And there's a set amount, and you can't fake it. It is what it is, right? That's from Henzo Gracie and John Danaher. And the last one is from Elio Gracie in the last interview he ever gave. Jiu-jitsu is for everyone. Anyone can learn, man or woman. It enhances everyone's physical potential. So if you want to increase your physical potential, learn jiu-jitsu because the jiu-jitsu we teach is at everyone's reach. Bitcoin is for everyone, right?
Yeah.
So it just kind of that I got that out of the way. Can you give us a brief overview of what got you into Bitcoin and how did you get started with the Orange Pill app?
Well, can I divert onto the and piggyback on your
Yeah,
jiu-jitsu
absolutely,
quotes
of
there for a
course.
second? Because those are so good. I mean, you literally quoted like the Mount Rushmore of those four people.
I know,
those three
right?
quotes
Yeah,
for four
like
people. Oh
yeah.
man. Oh
If,
yeah,
if
that's incredible. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, if no one knows who John Danaher and Henzo Gracie, Helio Gracie, and Hickson Gracie are, I would highly encourage you all to go look them up. Hickson is actually spelled with an R because it's Brazilian Portuguese rather. So they pronounce their H's as R's. Sorry, go ahead, Brian. I had to geek out on that shortly.
Yeah. And for my coach, he's Brazilian, and he I can't distinguish between when he says sh and a ch sound. So like when he's telling you to grab somebody's shin, I don't know if it's their leg he wants me to grab or their chin. So grab the shin. So yeah, sometimes the Portuguese Brazilian can be a little bit difficult to distinguish, but
And they talk
anyways,
so fast.
they talk fast, man. And my coach during a tournament, he is so intense. It like gets me more nervous. I always need one of my teammates to help coach too, who calms me down. But anyways, the quotes that you said about jiu-jitsu are so spot on. And one of the things that I would mention about jiu-jitsu and how it applies to on a general level and then on a personal level for my life with jiu-jitsu and Helio Gracie, who you quoted, who's kind of known as the godfather of Brazilian jiu-jitsu. It existed before him, but his family was really the one that brought it into its current form. And Helio Gracie, he was a small guy. He was a frail guy. He was the the weakest, like physically weakest member of his family. His brothers were all strong jiu-jitsu guys, but he formulated the more leverage-based, technique-based version of jiu-jitsu. Japanese jiu-jitsu was very strength and aggression-based, which is still a beautiful art, but Brazilian jiu-jitsu is known as the gentle art. That's what I believe jiu-jitsu means. So even the Japanese version means that. But the Brazilian jiu-jitsu, it really embodies this idea that it's the gentle art. If there's a drunk guy at a party, I like to train Muay Thai as well. But if I go up and kick him in the head to like help him calm down, I'm not going to do him any favors, and I might go to jail because I somebody caused damage to this person, right? Jiu-jitsu allows you to subdue somebody with really with very little force, the ability to not hurt somebody. So it's that, but it's really the art of self-defense. Elio Gracie was famous for saying when his sons, if they rarely lost in jiu-jitsu, but if they did lose, he would say, "Did you get tapped out? Did you get knocked out? Did you get beat?" And they would say, "No, like we lost on a decision or whatever it was." And he'd say, "That's not a loss." He said, "Jiu-jitsu is about self-preservation. If you walk away, that is a win." And when you think about it, I've fought in MMA, I fought in Brazilian jiu-jitsu. If I know somebody is a defensive master, that gets in your head. I'm a very offensive. I have some defense, but I'm a very offensive kind of crafty style. Like I like to be fast and explosive and very offensive. If I'm going against somebody that's a defensive master, it is very tiring. It's exhausting because if you don't catch them and don't catch them and don't catch them, at a certain point, your fuel tanks tend to go. I mean, we only have so much fuel, even if you're in great shape. And that person can defend with very little energy. It takes a lot more energy to offend than defend. And that's the essence of Bitcoin. Bitcoin isn't an offensive tool at all. It's literally the perfect defensive tool. It just protects your money. It doesn't do anything. Like it's kind of like the Constitution. The Constitution doesn't give you anything. The Constitution just tells you the ways that the government isn't supposed to mess with you. It's just a defensive tool, just like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is a defensive tool, just like Bitcoin's a defensive tool. So, I mean, it's really cool to see these kind of threads that go throughout life. It's, the big bully is the offensive one. The little kid that's just defending himself, the defensive one, like that's the hero. That's the person that we root for in the story. And that's what Bitcoin embodies. That's what a decentralized protocol like Bitcoin embodies. And even in my personal life, man, we're talking about jiu-jitsu so much. I'm sorry. I love it.
No, I honestly, it really, and sorry guys,
Yeah.
I know Grind and Beardy aren't into jiu-jitsu, but for me, it's like, it's just like for Grind the other day when we had Jason on and he was geeking out about whatever, like they were having something on. This is the same thing for me. So you guys have to deal with it. I don't apologize for that. But jiu-jitsu really and Bitcoin really are like, they're like
No, that means a lot. Like that's really cool to know that you've been making connections. That's literally why the app exists. Do you happen to be going to Pacific Bitcoin next month?
I won't be, but my buddy Zach with Bitcoin STEM, I know you were doing something with them. I won't be able to make that one, but yeah.
Well, so I went to Pacific Bitcoin last year. It was a few months after I published my book. And so I was like, I'm just going to go to the conference and just kind of meet and greet and see if I can talk to some guys and hopefully make some connections in the industry. I mean, outside of like publishing my book in the Bitcoin specific industry, I had worked on a blockchain project a few years back. But as far as like the Bitcoin core space, I wasn't really involved in it. And so I was just kind of meandering the conference hall, and I saw an opportunity to go up and talk to Mateo, who's the founder of Orange Pill App. And he was really busy all day. And then there was a moment like where there was nobody at the booth. So I'm like, okay, now's my time. I don't want to go with the crowd. And so I walked up and I'm getting the pitch about Orange Pill App from him. And then he all of a sudden gets really distracted and he's like not paying attention to me. And somebody else walks up next to me and kind of bumps into me a little bit. I'm like, who the frick is this guy? And I look over, it's Michael Saylor. Michael Saylor's like getting the pitch for Orange Pill App at the same time. He's like kind of encroaching on my space. And so anyways, his marketing girl was right there. And he said, she said, hey, why don't you guys, meaning Mateo and Michael Saylor, why don't you guys go get a picture in front of the Orange Pill App banner? And so I step off to the side trying to be polite. And then she goes, oh, you know what, Brian, why don't you get in there too? And so I said, okay, I'll get in there. And I'm pretty tall. I'm like 6'5". and my head blocked the part of the banner that said Orange Pill app. So if you go on my Twitter, if you scroll down, it's like the pinned post. I'm blocking part of the thing that says Orange Pill app. And so, yeah. And so I'm photobombing his thing with Michael Saylor. He finally gets a picture and I block out half of the Orange Pill app sign. And so I felt really bad after that. And the whole, like the next few weeks, I'd signed up as a member myself. I was using and I was talking to Bitcoiners because I live in Southern California. So there's a lot of people in Bitcoin on the app that I didn't know. It was like showed me a whole bunch of people that lived pretty close to me that I didn't know, which was awesome. But I'm like, man, this app's really cool. So I was tweeting about it, trying to get people to sign up. Like, hey guys, seriously, like this is a really cool thing. We need more of this. And they got some signups from it. I was trying to do him a favor because I felt like I messed up his picture with Michael Saylor. And they'd gotten enough signups from my tweets that Mateo said, hey, would you like to take over our Twitter for a couple weeks? I have a background in marketing. And he said, I see you have a background in marketing. Would you like to help with our Twitter for a couple weeks? Sure. And so I did that for 2 weeks. We got more signups and he said, hey, well, would you like to come on as the head of marketing and, kind of do this full time? And so I do the book thing. I promote my book a lot. I do the podcasting already for that, but I have a small chain of wellness companies. And that's a full-time job as well. So I'm like, you know what? Bitcoiners like to grind. So I'll take on like 3 full-time jobs. And so I do the head of marketing for Orange Pill app as well. And man, I got to say that's like such a passion project of mine because I really do see Orange Pill app, the social layer, the in-person, the in real life connection part of Bitcoin as one of the critical pieces for hyper Bitcoinization. We need things like, now that Twitter is a little bit more free speech, whether you believe that or not, I kind of do. I think it's a lot better platform than it used to be, or X or whatever you want to call it. But then we have things like Nostr. We're more censorship. We're more anti-fragile as Bitcoiners. But then we have something like Orange Pill app. Orange Pill app's not a competitor with Nostr. It's not even a competitor with X. It's literally an in-person app connector. It's helping to formulate the in real life side of the Bitcoin parallel economy. I mean, if the CBDCs come out, we're going to want online connections and we're going to want in real life connections. We're going to want to know people that live close to us that accept Bitcoin. And so I think that that's going to be a really, really big part of the Bitcoin future is an app like this. And so that's why I'm happy to be able to contribute to it.
Yeah, man, I love it. And I was able to catch your, I think it was with Breedlove, not a few days ago it dropped. That was pretty awesome. I think the social layer, you guys, it's kind of the first mover to the so you had Facebook back in the day and all that stuff. So for Bitcoin, this is like the first mover for the social layer. Yeah. And then speaking of Grindr and Joe, are you guys back yet?
Yeah, I'm back.
Oh,
how do I sound? Do I sound normal?
Yeah.
Last week it was helium, and now he's like eating glass. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah. All right. Sorry. Anyways, I don't know. Did we get? It sounds like you guys finished up with the brief overview and how you got started with the Orange Pill app.
Yep.
So I heard you mention your book a few times, and we obviously brought it up. Can you tell us what your book is about and what made you write it?
The prompt for writing it was honestly, I've been through a few bull runs so far, and I just was answering, like I was recognizing that in each bull run, I was answering all the same questions, like through text message or DM from my friends, people that knew me either in high school or that were my close friends now, or people that I knew from church or whatever. When the bull run would happen, I would be answering these long text messages, like 10 paragraph long text messages, because it was all the same. It was all the same questions. It was like, why is it really only 29 million? How do we know it's decentralized? Can't they just change the code? And then I would get questions too. Like once that friend would kind of get orange pilled, then they would be out there talking about Bitcoin, but then they would say, oh, this guy at work or my boss or my accountant or whoever, they had this question. And so it went from, how do you convince somebody that's kind of eager to learn about Bitcoin to how do I convince somebody that's a skeptic about Bitcoin? So those were kind of the two questions I was getting a lot. As I literally started writing the book because I thought I'm just going to write a resource for my friends. When I get these questions and these text messages in the next bull run, I'm just going to like send them a PDF. That's what it started out. And then it got to 100 pages and then it got to 390 pages or whatever it ended up being. And it essentially is what I like to think of as the 10,000 hours that somebody needs to do. It's going to cover all those topics. Now, whether you're going to have 10,000 hours worth of knowledge after you read it, probably not. One read through is probably not enough to do it, right? Because there's some information that's just going to go in one ear and out the other, or you forget it or whatever. But
Yeah.
all of us have sat there and done the hundreds of hours of research to get to a certain point where you feel like you're at the point where you're going to talk about it on a podcast, or you're going to talk about it and you're going to feel bold enough to share it with other people. Well, there's a bunch of different topics. And at the same time, I was recognizing that the pitch for one person about Bitcoin was different than the pitch for another person. So for my gold bug stepdad, he really was drawn to Bitcoin scarcity. For my freedom fighter friends, I have a bunch of friends that we live in California. And so we were like organizing all of the nurse walkouts during COVID and stuff like that. My liberty minded friends, they like the censorship resistant side of Bitcoin. The scarcity, they get it, but they're really interested in how do I know it's censorship resistant? And so like any good salesperson or any good evangelist or whatever you want to call it, you have to be able to tailor your message to different people. And hopefully that the book I think does a fairly good job of covering what are the different types of people or different types of objections you're going to have to answer about Bitcoin. And it's written in plain speak. As you can tell, I'm not Mr. Scholar academic guy. I come off kind of like a dum-dum. And it's written in plain English, just like I speak. It's a very conversational type of thing, just like we would sit here now and talk about it.
You know, I hate to keep bringing up the jiu-jitsu thing, but, you know, it's kind of funny about jiu-jitsu and Bitcoin guys is they're both are women and people in Bitcoin in general and jiu-jitsu in general. They're all pretty laid back and just like, hey, this is what I think. If you don't think the same as me, that's okay. We're still here for the same reason. Like, you know, just hella chill, you know?
It's pretty funny. Somebody just tagged me in a post by, what's the guy's name? It's, I'm going to look it up, but it's a comedian. And he said that Bitcoiners are like Mormons, that when you tell them no, and then they just keep coming back with a smile, and they just keep trying to convince you. I'm like, yep, that's exactly what we do.
Honestly. Yeah. Honestly.
Yeah. What was his name? Louis C.K. That's who it was. He said that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So can you tell us what kind of growth you've had so far inside of the Orange Pill app, and what are you guys expecting to do with that in the future?
Yeah, so we're coming up. It launched last November, so we're at 10 almost 10 months, just shy of 10 months right now from the launch date. And we're at first glance, it's going to sound unimpressive, but when you think about it, it's actually very impressive. So we're closing in on 7,000 paying monthly members, which is different. It's not our approach isn't like TikTok or Facebook or Twitter or anything like that, where it's free and you just try to get every single last user you possibly can. Our entire goal is to use a paywall, which it's $3 a month. It's really inexpensive to get in the app. But what the paywall does is it prevents all the spam, the scam, and the bots. When somebody DMs you, you don't have to wonder if it's like somebody just trying to get you to send them coins, or if it's, somebody trying to sell you something, or whatever it happens to be. Anytime you get a DM in the app, there's an authentic Bitcoiner on the other side of that communication. And so we're taking the quality over quantity approach. And so, and out of those 7,000 members, most of those have come in the last 3 months. I mean, you think about it, wow. It's very difficult to start a social network. One, with a paywall, you're going to get, you can only do this in Bitcoin. This is the crazy thing. Like if TikTok started with a paywall, nobody would have started using it, because that crowd doesn't understand value for value. Bitcoiners understand value for value. I mean, one of the things, the mantras that kind of plays in our head is that if something's, I even tweeted this today. Sorry, I keep saying Twitter. I don't know how to say it, refer to it as X, but if something's free, you're the product. But since you pay for Orange Pill app, we're the product. We're providing something. We don't sell any user data. We don't have access to user data or anything like that. People can be completely anonymous in the app. We actually don't care because of the fact that we don't harvest their data. And so, yeah, it's really incredible to see like how it's growing, because let me step back a second. starting a social network when nobody's on it. Think if you sign up and you're, the first person in your area, you're going to cancel immediately because there's nobody else. You're signing up to connect with other Bitcoiners in your area. So it's one of those things where it's kind of like Bitcoin. You just kind of need to start building. And as you build, more value kind of gets provided. When Bitcoin started, there was literally no value. We all know that. The first coins didn't have value until 2010, Bitcoin Pizza Day and all that kind of stuff. There really wasn't any kind of value ascribed to Bitcoin. Same thing with the app. At first, it wasn't, aside from like the first batch of people that signed up, they were just kind of believers and people that were buying in on the hope of a blue sky tomorrow. It was like, it was tough to pitch it to anybody beyond that. But we've had enough people. We have 7,000 people that have bought in and more coming on every day. The sales pitch gets a lot easier and the retention gets a lot easier because we were getting a lot of people that were signing up at the beginning and then they would cancel right away. Like, I checked the app out and there was nobody in my area. That was, unfortunately in the first month, there wasn't a lot of people, but here we are now. And there might be, if you're in a small area, there might be 2 or 3 Bitcoiners in your area. If you're like where I'm at, you might have 40 Bitcoiners in your area. So there's plenty of people to meet with. But then we've even been able to add other functionality too. So we even have an events tab, and we are the largest repository of Bitcoin only events in the world. Like you can find big Bitcoin events. You can find like Pacific Bitcoin in there, or you can find the little meetup that has 3 people at it that's in your area. And then we've even added features like Zaps. You can zap people. You can send sats to people in the app. You can send Zaps to an event. So if you create an event, you can have people that are attending the event zap some sats to it to help with the cost. So there's some cool new functionality like that that's been rolling out. And the crescendo is going to happen later this year, early next year, where this is actually why I signed on, not just the in real life connections, but the orange pages that's coming. We have a partnership with BTC Maps, and we're going to have every company that accepts Bitcoin in your area, you're going to be able to find in the app. And that's where it gets really exciting because that's where we take a giant quantum leap towards hyper Bitcoinization. When you can open the app and BTC Maps already exist. So people can find businesses that have that, but where the marriage between BTC Maps and Orange Pill app, the magic happens is because we have the demand side of the equation. We have the Bitcoiners that have Bitcoin to spend. And so that's really going to be exciting. So not only have we had improvements up until this point, we have some really big improvements coming in the not too distant future.
Yeah,
That's really cool.
Even without all that, I had a good time. I think I signed up in July, and then I utilized I'm in Minnesota, so Brandon Quittem does all the Minneapolis meetups, and you can post the stuff like that and the events there. And then just so happens, there's not a ton in my area in Minnesota, but the one that I did meet with was my neighbor's cousin, and I was able to meet up with him, and so it's been fun.
It's awesome, man. I love to hear that. Yeah.
Ton of them here in Dallas, in the Dallas area. I just am terrified of meeting people in real life, so I don't like going out in public. So otherwise, I totally would. And I keep thinking about it because there's like a Dungeons and Dragons meetup or something in Frisco. I don't remember where it is, and I was like, I've always thought about playing Dungeons and Dragons and like Bitcoiners, like one of these days I may have to do that. So I guess we're going to go to the last question here that I have here for, at least for me, is here on the show, we're advocates of cold storage and trying to teach the next generation of Bitcoiners how to avoid the mistakes many made in the last cycle. What do you think is the most important to teach the next generation of Bitcoiners, and how are you guys at Orange Pill going, or do you have a plan to incorporate like a 10 best practices for Bitcoin or new Bitcoiners or something like that? Do you guys have something like that going?
We don't have anything like that in the app. There's not really a feed. It's not like a typical social network where there's a feed. The feed is different profiles of people that you can meet. So we do an email newsletter. So we do things like that through our social media content, through our email newsletter. So there'll be, general best practices, industry news, stuff like that. Of course, when we have new features roll out. But in my role as like Bitcoin evangelism guy, that is very near and dear to my heart. And so I get to, speak at like I'm speaking in an Edge Wallet thing in San Diego. in a couple of weeks, and to speak, obviously on podcasts like this, which is amazing. But then we've been able to bridge over into like non-Bitcoin, non-crypto podcasts too, which has been cool. Where it's like, the liberty-minded people or the health and wellness people, where we're able to talk about that. And cold storage, the basics are really important when we go on podcasts like that. I had a friend of mine, literally an hour ago, who had bought, I don't know, in the last bear market, had bought something like $1,000 worth of Bitcoin and then had it all on BlockFi. And he was just texting me earlier saying, hey, did you see what am I supposed to do with BlockFi? There's, another legal notice that I'm supposed to fill out this survey or, stuff like that. And it just breaks my heart that, these guys, and these are friends that even said, yeah, I know you told me that I was supposed to put it in cold storage, but the yield was so alluring. And I understand that, like, I get that.
Yeah.
And it's like, they saw it as a way to stack sats. Like, I had $1,000 to spend on Bitcoin, and then I was able to stack more sats by accruing yield. And so just cold storage obviously is the key to that, but even convincing people that the risk analysis on that is, the downside is 100%, right? It's not like if I invest in Apple, man, if there's a bad economy or they have some bad products, I could see a 30% downside. That's not that risky of an investment. 30% down would suck in a stock like that, but you're not wiped out. But with a BlockFi or a third-party custodian, you can get absolutely wiped out. And I think that was just something that not a lot of people had seen. We had seen Mt. Gox, we had seen some smaller exchanges, but these big ones that were going on, CNBC and Fox News and stuff, they seemed like they had a level of credibility to the average person. And so now, at least as Bitcoiners, we get to speak to that and say, hey, historically, it doesn't matter how big that company was. I don't care if they have $10 billion on their balance sheet. It's not okay to do that. And so I like historical precedent, and that's typically where I like to teach from. But yes, the option is cold storage. And then beyond that, I like showing people a Lightning wallet. Like, if I have as far as practical types of things, I like showing people, like, here's a cool way to just send value. Look at, I sent 10,000 sats from me to you. You didn't have to put any information in an app anywhere. And we didn't ask anybody permission for that. Like, we just use mathematics and a protocol to send value. It's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, are you guys in the future going to try and create your own, like, maybe payment network for the app itself? Is that something maybe, or do you guys think you're just going to stick with Lightning, or what? I don't know a whole lot about that space. Can you talk about what the innovations are going on with that, and what you think is going to be the future of how we send sats like that? Because a lot of people complain about Lightning Network, being slow and going down and stuff like that. So can you just talk a little bit on that?
Yeah, I'd say this to Joe Hall. He's one of the advisors on Orange Pill app. He and I argue over who's paid the most Lightning invoices of all time. I legitimately think I've paid more Lightning invoices than anybody in history. I do sat giveaways all the time. I paid 55 invoices just today over Lightning. Not one of them failed. Not one of them took more than 3 seconds, and not one of them charged me a fee. So I don't know. I think there's times I've seen Lightning payments fail. Like, I know it does. And if you host your own, Lightning node, I've done that before, right? Like, when I do sats payouts, I either zap people over Orange Pill app, which is super efficient, or I use, Wallet of Satoshi, which is a custodial Lightning wallet, but I keep like 50,000 sats on there for that. I have my own Lightning node through my house. So, like, if I'm at home, I'll use that. But it's one of those things where we don't, as far as within Orange Pill app, we're just going to continue to use other people's infrastructure. Like, if you put in any kind of Lightning URL, you can get zapped through the app. So we don't care whether you use Wallet of Satoshi or Blue Wallet or your own Lightning URL or anything like that. And so I think that's going to be the way forward. Matteo, the founder, and this is what's brilliant about him. He's so singularly focused. And you look at a lot of the best CEOs throughout history, they're singularly focused. People say all the time, oh, you guys should I mean, have a feed. I even made that suggestion at one point. Like, why don't we have a feed? No, we're all about person-to-person connections. It's not meant to be an app where people spend hours of their day doom scrolling through the feed. Like, that's for other apps. The Orange Pill app is just for meeting people in person. So that whether that's one-on-one or events, or eventually going to be merchants in person, that's the value you're going to get out of the app. So we're not going to add crazy amounts of functionality. We're not going to be building things, third layer protocols for Bitcoin or anything like that. Our focus is just getting Bitcoiners to connect. And so, yeah, if there's other things that get built on top of Orange Pill app, we're just going to borrow other people's infrastructure. Just like the internet's built in layers, I think we would just kind of adopt some of that.
Okay, right on. That makes sense.
Yeah, I like that. I like that it's that direct focus. It has that intent and purpose to it. So,
what do you see as happening as far, or in this next bull run? Do you think that this is going to be the year that people or this bull run is going to be the one where people finally go like, oh, I get it? Because and I know like everyone always says it, right? Like, as you get further down the cycle, more and people are going to adopt it. It's the yield curve, or not yield curve, but it's the adoption effect and stuff like that, right? But when you start to, I mean, you've obviously been in the space for a while. So are you seeing more and more people, as inflation is getting higher and higher and all this stuff going on in the government, like looking at Bitcoin and being like, okay, that makes more sense to me now? And what do you think?
Yeah, I think that it's funny. I was doing a Twitter Spaces with Jimmy Song. I was interviewing him earlier, and I asked him almost the same question. So we were rapping about this a little bit earlier.
Really? Nice.
Yeah, it's funny. I think it's a good question. That's why I asked it myself.
Great minds think alike.
Right.
Brilliant.
Yeah, we got to hang out, man. I know you don't like to meet people in real life. I'll be nice.
I think we're going to do Bitcoin Nashville next year. So if you're going to head to that, then I think. So, Brian, will you remind me to look at buying tickets for that later? Because I have ADHD.
Yeah. You got it, brother.
Sorry, Ryan. Go ahead, buddy.
No, man. I think part of what is going to make this, yes, I think that there's a perfect storm of things that are happening that are going to make this bull run unlike anything we've ever seen before. It is going to blow everything out of the water. I don't know what you guys put Bitcoin adoption at worldwide. I still think we're in like the 1% or under range.
Around there.
Yeah, I don't think we're at like 10% or 20% or anything like that. I think in the US, there's like I think a good percentage of people have touched some form of crypto at some point. But as far as people that have gone below the surface at all, like anything besides scratching the surface, I think is less than 1%. They could articulate anything about Bitcoin, that sort of thing. Right. So I think that the perfect storm of massive hyperinflation, not just in the US, but around the world, BRICS currencies, CBDCs, all these different things, election years, all these kind of crazy things that are coinciding, and obviously the Bitcoin halving, absolutely massive kickoff to what's happening. And the important thing is, it's not just how many bull cycles have people seen. That is like, it's in marketing. We say you have to see something 7 times before you buy it. You have to see a pair of jeans 7 times before you buy it, or whatever it is. It's the same thing with Bitcoin, but I don't think it's the bull cycles that are the times that people see it. I think what people really need to see, especially the skeptics, and mind you, you guys, I'm sure, are all skeptical people. Bitcoiners are inherently skeptical people. And that's what's so interesting, is that we all said the same things about Bitcoin at first. That's a Ponzi scheme. They can change the code. We all said those things about Bitcoin. And it's kind of like your rite of passage is that you were a skeptic about Bitcoin, and then you're a champion of it once you went down the rabbit hole for it. And I think that the people that are going to get onboarded in this next phase, they needed to see Bitcoin die 3 or 4 times and then not die, right? They needed to know that it's resilient, because what's going to happen is next year, the price is going to go to 100,000. I actually think it's going to be before the end of the year. We're going to see some crazy price action, but who knows? I don't freaking know. But next year, you're going to see Bitcoin at 100,000. People are going to say, I thought Bitcoin died. I thought the FTX thing meant that was the end of Bitcoin, because those people haven't heard of Bitcoin again. And that's going to be an awakening of, oh my goodness, this thing, like, I remember China banned it. I remember the US. I thought the US banned it after FTX, and they're going to realize that it's like we were talking about with the defense earlier. Man, it is so strong and it's so resilient. And I would think that in this next bull cycle, you could have gotten to 100% adoption. The reason why you won't get to 100% adoption is because when you get to 20%, 30%, so much of the population is going to be sick and tired if they're not in Bitcoin yet. They're going to be sick and tired of hearing about how amazing Bitcoin is, that they're going to start to be resentful. They're going to be like, I'm not in it yet, so I don't want it. That type of thing. Like my son always does this with my daughters. Like he'll want to watch a movie. Like I know he wants to watch it, but then as soon as all of his sisters want to watch the movie, if they said it before him, then he'd be like, I don't want to watch that movie. And I think that there's people that will do that. That's why you won't get to 100% adoption in this next cycle, but you're going to get to, I think, hyper Bitcoinization by what I would define it in this next cycle. And there's something I write about in the book called capital flow inertia. The case study I use is the 2017 bull market. Towards the end, there was a 4-month period where only $6 billion of new capital came into the market, but it accounted for something like 154 billion of new market capitalization. So 6 billion of capital accounted for 154 billion in appreciation of price of the market capitalization of Bitcoin. That's a drop in the bucket. That's a very small amount compared to what's coming in to Bitcoin. And the more capital that flows in a tighter period of time, the more that multiple goes up. So instead of 6 billion creating 154 billion of new market cap, 9 billion creates something like, it mathematically would create something like 190 billion. It has a magnifying effect because it's a constraint on supply and demand, right? The supply is so far demand is so outstripping supply that you get to these insane prices. And that's one of the things that I think too many Bitcoiners, the trap that we fall into, the thinking we fall into is that, wow, if BlackRock comes in and they dump, $30 billion into, their customers dump $30 billion into Bitcoin, that, if Bitcoin goes up by 30 billion, like that's not that big of a deal. It means a lot more than 30 billion in market capitalization appreciation. You're talking about several $100,000 Bitcoin at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the thing that I think gets most underestimated.
For sure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Beardy, did you have anything? I was thinking of something as you were talking.
I do actually, sir.
Go ahead, buddy.
I mean, this is the social app, and this is a social guy. So Joe, I think you need to get out more. And so Nashville 2024. First of all, I'm a little offended. I do have a little martial arts experience, guys. I've seen the Karate Kid like 3 times now. And what I'm thinking,
bro, I see red when I get angry.
We get Joe, Nashville 2024 in person, get him out of his comfort zone. And he's a jiu-jitsu. We get a little cage match with Mr. Brian DeMint. What do you say?
No, see, here's the problem. I am technically on paper a 1-star or 1-stripe white belt because I refuse to go to gi class because I just like getting stoned and hanging out with my friends for 3.5 hours. And my coach was just like, you're not going to get promoted unless you come to gi. And I'm like, I don't care. So I would get murdered. I would straight up get fucking murdered.
So what you're saying is you're a tangerine belt, basically.
No, I think a tangerine belt would probably be able to beat me.
That's hilarious. So all I know is Beardy, if he got in a fight, sounds like he's going to sweep the leg because he's seen Karate Kid and he knows that leg is vulnerable.
Yeah, right.
I haven't seen the new one yet, but I have seen the old one 3 times. And I do send the Mr. Miyagi gift nodding quite a bit. So
Beardy thinks karate and jiu-jitsu is waxing a car.
No, I will say this. Maybe I'll ask Joe or Brian here, but I watched back when maybe I was 8. I would UFC 1. I would watch Tank Abbott. It was actually
Oh,
Hoist
yeah.
Gracie. I don't know where Hoist Gracie falls into the lineage,
Mhm.
but that's who I used to
Hoist was
watch.
a son of Elio.
Yeah, that's who I used to watch.
Dang, nice. That's some pretty OG stuff right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, my dad actually trained with Health Gracie in Health Gracie's garage with BJ Penn back in the
No
day.
way. That's
Yeah.
incredible, man. That's
So yeah,
Yeah,
that's
right
a whole other story. But God, you know what? I did have one more question for you, and I was thinking it as you were talking, but I can't remember
Okay,
right now.
while you're thinking of it, I just have a cool story about this coming up for Pacific Bitcoin. And so, Joe, if you're in Nashville, we're going to try and, if it's successful in Pacific Bitcoin, we're going to try and do it again in Nashville. But so one of the things that we get made fun of at Orange Pill app, people are, funny trolls on Twitter, and they'll say like, "Oh, I don't want to join Orange Pill app because I don't want to get $5 wrench attacked." Right? Like if I'm going to meet up with somebody, then they're going to $5 wrench attack me and steal my Bitcoins. Well, first of all, like you got to know how to secure your Bitcoin beyond being vulnerable to a $5 wrench attack. But we just think that's funny. And so Ben Askren, I don't know if you guys know who Ben Askren is, but yeah, MMA fighter, Olympic wrestler. He boxed Jake Paul. But anyways, great, fantastic wrestler, right? And so he and I are running, it's called the Orange Pill app $5 wrench attack self-defense seminar at Pacific Bitcoin. So Pacific Bitcoin Swan, they bought mats, they bought everything. So we have an hour and a half jiu-jitsu class at Pacific Bitcoin that Ben Askren and I are running. And so it's just a couple of techniques, and then everybody gets to, open mat roll. But it'll be a lot of fun. So I'm hoping that we can make that happen in Nashville too.
Okay. Yeah, definitely.
I like that.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
I have ADHD, and I don't remember what I was going to ask you at some point. I'm sure we will have you back on, though, hopefully, if you don't mind, and we will talk about it at that point. Unless you have anything else you guys wanted to talk about. We do always try to leave with a question, like a dad advice question. So for you, what would you tell I kind of always ask this one, but what would you tell yourself, 20 years ago? What advice would you give yourself, and what advice do you think 20-year you from the future would tell you now?
Ooh, that second part, I've never thought. Yeah, wow.
Yeah, okay. I know. I like throwing some wrenches at people, man.
Dang, so, I like that.
Wrench attack.
Wrench attack online. I don't like okay, so the first one I think about a lot. The first part, so there's a bunch of stuff. Without telling you everything that I tell my son every day, what I would tell myself is that
you tell your son, because I mean, you're
daddish.
You want a dad advice. I forgot you have kids. So what dad advice do you give your son then?
So I have 4 kids. Every one of them needs different advice because they're all wildly different. But I genuinely, what we talk about all the time in my family is this idea of meekness. We're a family of Christians, and the Bible, Jesus specifically talks about this idea of meekness. And I think for generations, the church has defined meekness as niceness. Like the Bible actually really never calls you to be nice. It calls you to be the light. So it means like, you should do good things for other people so that they see your good deeds and, glorify God. So there's like an element of that. But meekness specifically, meekness is the definition of it means that it's power under control. It's this ability to have great strength, but then to restrain it and only use your strength in righteous pursuit. So me and my son and me and my girls, because my girls train jiu-jitsu as well. Bring it back to jiu-jitsu again. But this idea, and this is true in all walks of life. So it's with your social influence, with your interpersonal relationships, with your money, with your wealth, whatever it happens to be as strong as you could possibly be, but then be restrained with it and only use it when you need it. Jordan Peterson has this beautiful way of explaining meekness. He said, meekness is like a swordsman that knows how to wield a sword dangerously. He could cut your head off if you were in a duel with him. And yet he chooses to sheathe his sword. He chooses to restrain it in time of conflict. If somebody insults him or does one of those things, because so many people are quick to prove themselves and quick to brag, and to show how strong they are. And that's kind of one of the things that I see that a lot in Bitcoiners is this like meekness. I mean, Bitcoiners are probably the one of the, and already even in the bear market, but certainly in the bull market, are going to be a cross section of the wealthiest demographic in the world. And yet stay humble and stack sats is like one of the mantras that we talk about. And some people are better at that than others, but I talk to my kids about meekness all the time. And then in business, the business advice I would give myself from 20 years ago is to not play your cards so close to your vest. And all I mean by that is just be transparent in business negotiations. When I started, I've been an entrepreneur. I'm 37 now, started when I was 22. I used to hide everything. I used to keep everything to myself. I found that in business negotiations, when you could just be transparent with people, and instead of pulling one over on somebody, trying to find a mutual way to have a win-win situation in a negotiation or a transaction or anything like that, it bears fruit in the long run. One good business transaction where both people win tends to bring business and fruitful business relationships down the road. I used to try and win every little transaction, and it just wasn't good for the long haul. And so, yeah, laying my cards out here, this is what I need. What do you need? That sort of thing. That's good for life. That's good for relationships, but it's good for business too. And I imagine one of the things I guess sometimes about this, and so when you asked it kind of jogged a thought. I don't think about maybe 20 years from now, but I think about what I'm going to think of on my deathbed. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of thoughts of, man, did I do things that mattered in my life? And so I hope that my day is filled with things that matter. I know I spend a lot of time on things that may not matter or that might matter less than others. But I just hope that I don't regret having wasted time on things that didn't matter. And I'm sure I will have wasted time on things that don't matter, but hopefully there's not so many that I remember them when I'm on my deathbed. Hopefully the only things that stick out are going to be the things that I did that were of worth to humanity, to my family, that sort of thing.
Yeah. The quote is actually, it's Jordan Peterson: "A harmless man is not a good man. A good man is a dangerous man who has that under voluntary control." And that is actually my alarm every morning at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Seriously?
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
well, 5 a.m. Yeah, it's Jordan Peterson, and it's him. It's the video of him and Joe Rogan, and he talks about the quote, and he said no, and he's like, gives the whole quote, and he's like, no, men should be violent, and they should know how to control it, and that's when that's what wakes me up in the morning. So
that's a great idea.
It was kind of a pain in the ass to figure out how to do it on the iPhone, but I figured it out. So if you send me your email, I can drop you the video, the whatever whatever it is.
File. Cool, man. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. So other than that, I think we're kind of wrapping up on our time. You guys have any other questions, or Brian, is there anything you wanted to ask us, or?
So one thing I'm always curious about what other people think. Have you? Well, first of all, let me ask this preface question: how long have you guys been in Bitcoin? Have you guys already been through a bull run or two?
No. This is going to be my first full bull run. I got in last bull run at like I would say 3/4. Like I watched Bitcoin climb the last little bit, and I was buying. I'm like, I'm so smart. This is never gonna go down. Like all the
genius
fucking cliches.
Yep.
Yeah. I got in end of 2020, but Grinder's been mining Doge in his mom's basement since like 2006. I heard.
No, I got in at 2013.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, he's the OG of the space.
I've gone through all the cycles, so
nice.
They don't phase me anymore.
They don't phase you. You got diamond hands. So then, I mean, what do you guys think? There was 2017 was the ICOs. 2020 was DeFi summer. What do you think is going to be the next craze that is going to just kind of blindside people? There's going to be a lot of new money that comes into the space, but that's going to suck up a lot of it. That tends to be where scams congregate around and things like that. What do you think is going to be the thing to look out for?
I think it's going to be a combination of a lot of the things that we've already seen. And by that, I mean, I think DeFi is going to be a focus again because of all the exchanges and businesses that went down in the last cycle. I think that gaming Web3 gaming with some games that are actually like good quality, not like mobile game quality, but AAA, AA game quality might be another section. And then unfortunately, or fortunately, if you like it, I think NFTs are going to kind of come back in a big way. Because like we were talking before, very few people, maybe like 3% of the world, 1% of actual people like stuck around longer than, just the bull run. So there's still plenty of room for a bunch of people to think that like, they're at the front of the pack doing like some new thing. And I think they're going to get pulled in to these narratives that started in the last cycle, but never really picked up that much steam.
Yeah, that they're definitely going to use AI to. I can't only imagine the scams they're gonna through AI that they're gonna create. But I'm pretty dumb, so I'll probably fall for them.
Send me one Bitcoin, I'll send you 10 Bitcoin like that.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. Yeah. I think it's going to be as far as like things we need to worry about and look out for. I think it's going to be a lot more of the advanced scams of what we had like the last bull run, incorporating AI and stuff like that, which is unfortunate. But I mean, it's kind of part of the game, right? And I think that you're going to see in this run a much larger push for self custody and sovereignty in this market, because so many people are going to be screaming about, hey, take your stuff off the exchanges. I know we will be through the bull run into the next bear run. We will be screaming, take your stuff off exchanges. Do not fall for the Mt. Gox. Do not fall for the FTX. Do not fall for the BlockFi. Don't chase the yield. Just stick it in there and leave it alone. So I think that's what we need to be worried about most in this next bull run, and also be preaching the most about. So that's, like you had CZ talk about the other day, how scammers are getting so much more advanced with copying wallet addresses, right? Like most people just check the first, like 6, 8, whatever it is. And these guys are doing, like the first 12, or whatever it is.
Even on Twitter, look, the scammers have blue check marks now. Here, Brian, I thought I was a hit with Asian ladies. Turns out I'm not.
Yeah, you know what? It's really weird. They keep on asking me for if I want to see boobs and vagine, but I don't know what that means. So I don't know what bobs and vagine is. It's really weird, man.
But they got blue check marks. So I was like, what the hell?
Yeah, right.
Man, these rich, cute ladies are after me. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's local milfs in my area that want my attention too, according to my computer.
They're everywhere.
Yeah, so I think that's what we're going to be looking at. And I know there's going to be a bunch of us in the space. I'm sure you are, included in this, who are going to be screaming at people, look into hardware wallets, stuff like that. Do you have any particular hardware wallets, before we let you go, that you would like to recommend to the viewers, and that because we're always trying to explore. We just recently did one with Keystone, which is very interesting. But do you have any that you are recommending?
I mean, I had Ledger for a long time. There was some of the open source stuff, the lack of open source stuff that kind of was eye opening and kind of frustrating, because they were like the gold standard of cold storage. But I have a cold card now, and I have I hide things in paper wallets, and obviously multiple backups and stuff like that, and I have a pretty sophisticated system for just storing seed phrases, and then just recovering them in kind of different ways. So I suggest people explore that a bit. But yeah, cold cards seem to be a pretty cool route so far. But yeah, what's your guys' number one?
We are all big fans of Keystone. They just so we all have them on order right now. We're actually doing another interview with the CEO in a couple of weeks, so that'd be really cool. But that Ledger, Trezor, I know I've got a Trezor and a Ledger, and then I'm waiting on my Keystone. Beardy, I know, has the same, I think, right?
Yeah, my first one was a Trezor T, and then Elpal was pretty decent. But then I know Cold Card for Bitcoin only.
Mhm.
Yeah, I used the Bitcoin Core wallet from 2013 to 2021, and then I got myself the Ledger, and then the Ledger debacle happened, and so now I've got the Keystone on order. But before I chose the Keystone, I almost went with the Trezor Model T. So those would be the ones that I recommend.
Okay.
I still think the risk on Ledger is relatively small, but
Yeah.
if you're trying to figure out what is going to be the least risky, it's still now it's slightly riskier than those other options. And I also watched the Cold Card interview and setup process that Natalie Brunell did, and I also watched your. That's how I got first found you, Brian, was on your interview with Natalie. So um, I would definitely endorse the Cold Card as well. But I like to go into some of the shit coins and the alts and whatnot. So I needed a little bit more flexibility.
Gotcha.
I just like to keep it all on exchange and see what happens.
Coinbase for the win. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. No, it's funny that you say that because people used to always say to me like, "Oh, I can't believe you use Coinbase. Their fees are so high. Their fees are so high." Well, guess what? I'm glad I paid those fees now. Where's your money, guys? All on FTX, locked up or stolen? Okay.
Yeah, worrying about
you
getting
get what you pay for.
clawbacks for people who, like people who had stuff out did the withdrawals 89 days beforehand, 90 days beforehand, and they're getting their money with clawed back. Like,
Man.
what does that have to do with them? That's nothing to do with them. It's ridiculous.
Well, I don't know if that's happening yet, but it's just like it is technically an option that could be on the table. But
oh no, they're already talked about it. They're doing it.
They are doing it. Okay.
Celsius is doing it.
Yeah.
So anyway,
well, Brian, I actually just had another comment for you. I'm just really glad that the way you're approaching your book, the way that the app is approaching things, I just like the whole idea of, what can Bitcoin do? Like, because you're right. Like, so many people come into it thinking that it's just like an investment vehicle or like a gamble, and then they don't stick around long enough to learn what Bitcoin is. And it's so frustrating because like, even when you're trying to like communicate with people who, are like family or close friends, or they've come to you and asked you about it, and you send them all this material and they just space out. They don't watch it. They don't listen to it. And then you come back to them 3 months later and they're like, "Oh yeah, man, like I don't care anymore. Like you can stop sending me this stuff."
Right.
And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And then, like my cousin said this to me. He sent me a text and he's like, "Dude, I've lost money and like, what can Bitcoin do?" And I'm like, "What can Bitcoin do? You haven't paid attention to anything I've been sending you. If you watch, you have to put in that 50 hours, 100 hours to get started. And then, like you were saying earlier, you need that maybe 10,000 hours to become a master of it, But if somebody, in my opinion, if somebody's saying, what can it do? They haven't done the research yet because it can do so much. And it sounds like your book is one of the ways that we can kind of consolidate some of that information and hand it over to them to maybe orange pill them. So
yeah, well, no, I appreciate you saying that. No, I appreciate you saying that. And it's really meant to be read by either or. Like if you're somebody that's into Bitcoin and you're trying to explain it to people, I think it's a good edifying book for that person. If it's somebody you're just handing it to them, I think they can pick it up and read it, and it would also be edifying for that person too. I've had both types of people read it and give phenomenal feedback. And I would say, I mean, you brought up the altcoin, your altcoin adventures or whatever earlier. It's the most friendly Bitcoin only book towards altcoin. Like I said, I worked in the space. Most Bitcoin maxis have a history of altcoins, and so it dives into that. I talk about altcoins. My position now is a Bitcoin only position, but I do talk about what's interesting in the altcoin space, and I talk about a Bitcoin maxi's perspective on basically what kind of value can altcoins provide to Bitcoin, and so there's even a chapter on that. And so I think it's meant to be an amicable read because, yeah, I think that the toxic maximalism in Bitcoin can be off-putting. And I think that Bitcoin maxis, if they want Bitcoin to grow, the lowest hanging fruit for the most capital that could come into Bitcoin is people in the crypto space. And so if we're alienating people and just calling people stupid because they're into altcoins, I don't think that's a winning proposition or a winning strategy. Right. And so, yeah, I think that if you like altcoins, if you dabble in altcoins, I think you're going to realize that this book isn't pointing a finger or anything like that. You're going to be able to, find value in it as well. So thank you. And there's an audio book. If you don't like to read, not you guys, but if they, don't like to read, there's an audio book. And I'm actually working with somebody that's doing a slide presentation, like a pitch deck on the content of the book. So for people that really need shorter form content, like 10-minute chapters where somebody's explaining the principles, we have somebody that's working on that right now that you could just literally zip off a file or a video to somebody and they can watch 10 minutes on what are the tenets of Bitcoin, that type of stuff.
Yeah. When maxis like challenge me on like the altcoining, they'll say like, why do you need to do why do you do that? I just say, well, 95% of the Bitcoin I own is from altcoins. So, if you know what you're doing, if you're doing your research, that is the way that I stack sats. Is everybody going to be able to do that? No, most people are going to get wrecked in that process. That's why my channel is there to try to educate some people on how to look at technical analysis to be able to make these trades. But at the core of it, for me, it's like, I know what the true signal is. The true signal is Bitcoin. All my altcoin is just to stack Bitcoin faster.
Yeah, honestly, all of my alts are to stack stats and to stack real estate, or to buy rental properties. And that's what I look at alts as. Is like, there is a great market. There's a lot of innovation in that space for certain things that Bitcoin doesn't need to necessarily fill that role, right? Like, Bitcoin doesn't need to fill Visa's 3,000 or 10,000, 100,000 transaction per second. Their thing. That's not Bitcoin's lane. It's nothing to do with that, right? That's more Solana, Polygon, whatever. There is innovation in the space in crypto that's then more than just Bitcoin that'll do the world good. And I wish more maxis would see that. The space has a lot to offer people, more than just what Bitcoin can do. It's what, everything can do. I'm going to stop rambling now.
Pepe to the moon. Before we let him go, I just want to point this out. This is our third guest who has written a book, and me and Joe both can't read. So
yes. Actually,
we just had Jason Meyer, and he's a teacher, so you got big shoes to fill for the writing.
Yeah, Jason's a good dude, man. Me and him, we went out to DC together, and we hung out there. We didn't fly out there together. We met out there, was part of a group where we took his book and a bunch of other books to Congress. Did he mention that to you guys that we did?
No, he didn't. But I don't think he knew that we were going to have you on. So. Maybe we can have you guys both on one day.
Dude, it was pretty cool, man. Yeah, it was a cool initiative. We bought 500. Orange Pill app bought 535 copies of the Bitcoin Standard, and then him and then Nick Bhatia from Layered Money, they brought their books too. So they brought them for all his book for all the Democrats, and then we just dropped every person in Congress and the Senate and the U.S. Capitol got a copy of the Bitcoin Standard. That was a pretty cool experience.
That's cool.
That's really cool.
Really
yeah.
cool.
I love it. You're living up to the app, man.
Definitely. Well, we appreciate everything you do for the space, Brian, and we appreciate you coming on. I know it's a Friday night, and so I know you're getting ready to go hang out with your little ones and your wife. So we really appreciate you coming on, man.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Absolutely. No, it's always great to talk about this stuff with other people in the space, man. It's a true pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. And don't forget, this weekend, go outside, touch some grass, do something with your family members, whatever y'all want to do. But just go outside, get away from your phones. Have a great one, and we will talk to y'all next time.